Okay.
Lovely.
All right, after several trials and tribulations about the beauty of Skype and the complexities of the internet, I'm having a chat in the United Kingdom with duo pianists, piano à deux, Linda Ang, Stoodley, and Robert Stoodley. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. Having been a student, I think I have the proper pronunciation. Am I okay?
It's good.
Okay, good. Want to make sure.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about their 2019 Divine Art release, CD release, titled wonderfully, by the way, Porgy, Preludes, and Paris. And not just an accidental title, a very, very beautifully thought out and very well organized title, which we'll speak to a little later. Another big surprise on this CD, how this all makes such incredible sense, intellectual sense. It's really a wonderful CD. George Gershwin, the music of George Gershwin, arranged for four hands by one or the other or both of you. I'll ask the question later. Here's what's on this wonderful CD. And by the way, there are three, correct? Three earlier CDs. Yeah?
Yeah.
Two.
Two.
All with
Yeah.
this similar. I realize I don't quite have the titles to hand. You can tell me, but have similar sort of wonderful themes. What was the friend? Give me the titles of the preceding two.
Well, the first one's called Strictly Not Bach, and the second one's called France Revisited.
Yeah. And by the way, this is no silliness. This is not a gag or a shtick. I am sure those, I haven't heard them, of course, but based on what I have heard on this CD about Gershwin, I know that these are going to be the other two are going to be also fascinating. Here's what's on this CD, everybody. So take note. Scenes from Porgy and Bess. And this is an understatement. This is called reimagining Porgy and Bess for piano four hands. Diversions, and these are three. There are two diversions. Novelette, Love Walked In. Rialto, Ripples, Love Is Here to Stay. I'm a little confusing here, but what this is, and you're going to talk about it with me, is I just lost the word, but a conflation.
Yes.
I like that.
Of prelude, of Gershwin recognizable preludes and others of his songs. Absolutely brilliant arranging, to say nothing of making those selections. We'll talk about it in a minute. And then a suite of three preludes, three of Gershwin's preludes, conflated with, for example, the first prelude with Stairway to Paradise, the
Yes.
second prelude paired with A Foggy Day in London Town, the third prelude paired compositionally. I mean, these aren't arranged. This is like an amazing piece of composition. May I salute you? The third prelude paired with Someone to Watch Over Me and The Man I Love. Incredible. And then the end of the CD is An American in Paris, Revisited. And how? We'll talk about some of the missing bits from the solo piano transcription. The waltz I'm thinking of in particular, that wonderful whole waltz section that is so fabulous. And also I had never realized that Gershwin referred to An American in Paris as a ballet.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that. All right.
Yeah.
So by the way, just a compliment to your recording engineer and to the site. Superb engineering. The quality of the sound. St. Peter and Paul Church in Hanborough, Oxfordshire. How'd I do?
Yep.
Just a superb sound. The quality is magnificent throughout. You could hear everything, and the transcriptions and arrangements and new imaginings in terms of the writing, crystal clear. Everything is so clear. The movement of the parts, and that's one of the problems I'm going to ask you about. Okay, so dealt with that. All of these arrangements, quote, transcriptions, quote, are actually entirely original compositions in my view. They meld, as I've mentioned, Gershwin's beautiful music and your imaginings as well. Whoever you are, whichever one of you it is, I don't know, maybe it's both of you. Sit down at the kitchen table and thrash this through, but we'll get there. Let's just speak for a minute about Robert and Linda, because this is a fascinating tale as well. We don't want to get too crazy, too romantic, too mushy, but you met online. Hello? So
Okay.
the internet works.
Yeah.
That's
That's a good point.
Married in 2008, formed the duo piano did in 2010. What else? Robert is a linguist. How that works in with the music career is quite fascinating, I'm sure. Performing and teaching diplomas from Royal College of Music, Royal Academy of Music. Linda studied at Guildhall. I studied at Trinity College of Music once upon a time. It was called that. Both are experiencing wonderful careers. Get this one, everybody. What we all kind of fantasize about, and this is where we're going to start. Wonderful career on cruise ships. From the and apparently you have a tattoo or something with Cunard lines. It looks like Cunard that has you off on trips with the brand new gorgeous Queen Victoria, the Queen Mary II, on and on. What a life! Let's start right there. What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly about signing on board and being part of the crew, I suppose, as artists performing? Good, bad, ugly, tell us.
Okay, well, let's start with the ugly. We can be given crew accommodation, but the good is we very often aren't. We're given passenger accommodation. So we can be just as often on a passenger list as we are on a crew list. When we're on a passenger list, it's much more comfortable. Sure. So it's not all bad. It's pretty good. A lot of the cabins we get on ships are very good.
And the upside is that we get to play anything from 3 to 6 concerts, which is wonderful. It means we get to play a lot, but the practicing arrangements are a bit difficult. So we have to work early in the morning before anybody else gets up.
Which is manageable for me, but it's a bit of a struggle for Linda.
It would be a struggle for me. I'm not an early morning person at all. Not at all. I sympathize completely, Linda. Well, what else? In other words, do you do, for example, in the case of this wonderful Gershwin package, it's really the CD is a fully conceived structure. I think, anyway, the way you've organized it. We'll talk about making those decisions for the CD. But do you give recitals in that sense, or are you taking tune calls from the audience? How does that work?
No, how does it? Well, we usually, when we give recitals or concerts, we do a particular theme around the composers' lives that are in the concert. So it's not just a recital of odd pieces strung together. We try and make a theme out of it.
So every concert has a title, like from Carmen to Can Can, from Mistresses to Manhattan, and then the whole program is actually a story of a program that's linked together with stories.
Perfect. So this is a concert series per cruise. This is not sitting in the bar and taking tips and playing Smokey for people.
No, that's good. That's well. You described the opposite end very well. It's totally opposite from that.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
And how are the venues on these gorgeous cruise ships? I've heard, I've never seen. How are the concert or recital rooms?
They're pretty good. Some are better than others. When we get to play in a theatre, it's 100% brilliant. Yes. And the pianos are brilliant. You'll always get a good Steinway.
Yes.
You don't play in a theatre, it's not quite so good, but it's still pretty good. Sometimes we play in a ballroom or something which is engineered more for dancing and sitting around the edge, but it still works reasonably well. You're close to your audience, so you can get a good rapport with them. Yes. And we've had nothing but praise for the cruise ships. They've all got good pianos now. There was a time when they didn't, but they do now. And it works really well. We get a good rapport with the audience in these venues. It's brilliant.
And are you able to fraternize with the passengers, or is there some kind of class distinction, so to say?
No. Total fraternization.
And we love the passengers. Yes.
And the great thing about these cruise ships is that you can meet your audience before the concert. You just go up and have dinner with them and say, "We're the classical pianists. We do the classical concert." "Oh, when's that?" "Oh, well, do come along." So you can make your audience before the concert, which is absolutely unique. Then, of course, you get people coming along. They say, "We'll bring our friends to the next one." So the next one's got a bigger audience, etc., etc. This is a good little cumulative effect.
Yep, and judging from the performance level that I hear on this CD, incredible. I mean, we are not talking lounge pianists by any stretch of the imagination. Please forgive me for even implying such a thing. This is first class playing, totally accurate. And as we said, I'm leading up to it, but I want to ask. Let's see, where was this one other little question? Oh, so I have this little fantasy in my mind. You live in the UK. I studied there as well. We all know the weather is horrible. Let's be clear.
Yes.
And so everyone
But with
does.
climate change, it's getting a bit better.
Really? Oh, yeah. That would be ironic, wouldn't
It's
it?
getting warmer, which is pretty good for the UK.
Interesting. Tropical forests in another 7,000 years. That's perfect. But so I'm imagining because I love ships and I know very well these cruise ships you're on, that you're living in Southampton, a little cottage overlooking the sea, waiting for your next departure, or are you living in London or something?
Now there's
we live in Oxford. And
very nice.
we sometimes fly out of Heathrow, or we go to Southampton, or we fly out of Gatwick. So it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Oxford is not bad. Charming.
Oh, it's lovely.
And where we live, there's no traffic, so we're thankful to God for that.
Why did you have to say that? I live in lovely, gorgeous downtown Santa Barbara, and the traffic, to my amazement, since I've been living in an apartment downtown, is hellacious. Anyway, enough of my sorrows. What's the routine at home? We've got a married couple whose career is dual pianists. When does one or the other say, "Please go away for 6 hours. I can't stand it any longer, and take that piano with you"?
Well, this is interesting. We don't actually get to that place because the risk is if we get to that place once, piano à deux just stops for good. So we resist going down that road. But it's on the horizon. But we say, look, if we want to keep this going, there's a certain amount of discipline to the work that we just have to undertake. And that's my take on it, anyway.
Well, piano à deux is part of the glue, really.
Oh, I believe that was a revelation of sorts. I see. So longevity of marriages can perhaps depend on whether you have a professional stake in things as well. I see. Never mind. We don't want to go there. Now, I want to ask this other question because I always am interested in the organization of a CD. It's beautifully organized. The entertainment on that CD, as I've mentioned before, this is far from just transcriptions. This is much, much more. So here's what I'm also imagining. First of all, the hard work of making choices, how you pair a prelude with a song.
Yeah.
And what I'm imagining, the kitchen table, there are 8,000 scores all over the place. Do you two haggle and make compromise, or is this a one-person operation? Who wants to speak? Remember, your marriage is at stake.
I can give you the nutshell on this. Basically, Linda starts the process going because she's very creative with quick ideas. So she will have ideas already with her Gershwin albums out on the table, listing all the songs, of which she knows most of them. Am I right there? I think you know a lot of Gershwin songs because you've done a lot of accompanying.
I've done a huge amount of accompanying, so I know many, many of the Gershwin songs. And it was a question of going through the book and, finding 20 that might have been suitable. They need to be transcribable for piano. So wonderful, but they may not necessarily work for piano. So that was the first step. And then the next thing was finding the preludes and then finding the songs that might be in suitable keys, which would meld into the preludes, and then finding the moods and the tempi that would work.
Not an easy task.
Not an easy task, yes.
Now, who does the actual writing, or do the two of you sit down and share a piece of manuscript paper?
No, Linda does most of it.
And a lot of it, we work from the two-hand version or the song version, and then we do an origami.
No, you do the origami. I can't do it. She's good at, really good at this.
Yeah.
She's got a scotch tape and her scissors and little bits of paper, and she just sticks them in, crosses bits out, sticks bits over them. So we go from one part of the work to another part of the work, missing out a few bars.
Yes.
And that's how it joins together.
And then sometimes you have to write connecting phrases, and then we start to improvise.
Which we both do.
So and it's a long journey.
So in the end, in terms of this CD, there was no free improvisation, right? The improvisation, I remember one little moment, which was clearly intended as an improvisation. That's written out, is it, in this case, yeah? for the
I
CD.
think you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I learned early on that if you don't write it out, if you're doing 5 takes, they could all be different. And then it doesn't work for a recording.
Yeah.
In a concert performance, it's fine.
Yeah, and more fun, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gunther Schuller is, I will not stop speaking of Gunther Schuller. Remember his third way or third stream or whatever it was, third manner. He was so right in the 50s. More and more classical musicians are reacquiring the skills of improvisation and embellishment that they had 300 years ago without thinking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Well, let's have a look at, if we have time, plenty of time. I want to look at the two bookends on the CD because they are major works. Scenes from Porgy and Bess and An American in Paris.
Okay.
And again, there is absolutely no food for. Let's start with Porgy and Bess, 1935, the fabulous opera Porgy of Gershwin.
Yes.
And here's my notes: no fooling around with tempi. Bam! Off you go right away at full gallop. And that's when I first thought, okay, this is going to be quite all right. Playing is beautifully balanced and inventive. And you have organized the story, the narrative, in a very, very interesting way. Not just, arranging the songs, but coming back, leitmotifs, if you will. Okay. I'm thinking of what's the one that keeps returning about?
That's about leaving. About leaving.
Yep, and also about who is my man? Which one? Because Sport and Life steals. Yes, from. So it's the organization of this 15 minutes of transcription, quotes, rewriting, reimagining, brilliant, but also the complexity of the story that you want to tell and tell musically is quite interesting. What kind of a process was involved? Are we talking 3 months, 6 months, 8 weeks, 2 days to put this creature together?
It was more like a year, over a year, wasn't it?
Makes sense.
I think. Yeah.
Yes, we kind of did it and picked it up, and I think the initial process of selecting which bits you keep is very, very difficult because it's a very long score.
Yes.
So and I guess I was familiar with some of it, and I thought a lot about the audience point of view, that you've got to highlight various bits that they're going to recognize, and then you direct them to what I see as the climax, which is Bess, You Is My Woman.
Yeah.
That just is such a climactic point of the story, the love duet.
Yes, absolutely. And also you divide the work, not to say specifically, but into acts. You keep there we go. That's looking pretty good. You tend to. It's very, very tough to get 2 faces into one screen. So thank you for that. But and they're married, everyone, so it's okay. They can get close. Okay. But again, the way you organize this suite or scenes from Porgy and Bess in the manner of the opera. There are no compromises. There you know what I mean. The story is there. The preparation for the end of Act 1, the beginning of Act 2, and so on. So first class. And the sort of by the way, this is the sort of CD that I'm going to play a lot.
Oh, thank
you.
But and I mean for people, at dinners and things. It's that kind of fabulous CD. So I hope no one else is offended, but this is just one of those things. Let's look at American in Paris because, and you're very clear, An American in Paris, revisited.
Yeah.
And that's a very nice way of saying, watch out everybody, this is us really having a fresh look at this wonderful, wonderful suite. I love the way, by the way, as a duo, not only the precision of your playing, that's why I made jokes about when you get fed up with each other, because it's so perfect, the playing and the beautiful matching of tone and color. By the way, that must be one of the big problems in terms of transcriptions. Color, style. As you said, weaving tunes together, 2 ideas together in terms of the sequencing that you compose and so on. It's very, very tricky. But in American in Paris, what I love is the excerpt I have never heard before. I'm referring to that whole waltz section.
Yes.
You mentioned that some of the opera, some of the ballet, if you will, is left out of the solo piano version. Linda,
Yeah.
you want to give us a little overview of how American in Paris Revisited came together?
Yes, we went through the orchestral score, if you like, in a two-hand version, and decided that a lot of it was very orchestral, that it works for a ballet, but that as a piano piece, there's not that much to hang on to in those sections. So what we did was we went to the film, An American in Paris.
You've got a DVD of it.
Yes, and there's some songs which are included in the film, and one of those songs is called By Strauss, which is a wonderful song talking about, if you want a great piece of music, you need to go to Johann Strauss, not the tin can of Gershwin. And the words are just absolutely magnificent, but it's a Viennese waltz, which brings a totally different musical landscape into this American in Paris. And then, of course, also I Got Rhythm. And that also comes in the film. And we could not resist bringing that into the arrangement. And some purists would actually slap us down for that, but well.
No. We had a talk off camera. I was a purist once. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Purism.
Well, let's put the lid on that one then.
Yeah, purism is out the door. Who cares about purism? And by the way, that finale, I Got Rhythm, to wind that piece down. Talk about creating an audience pleaser. People must go crazy when they hear. By the way,
there's a little story.
Yeah.
There's a little story to this. When I first met Linda, we were very enthusiastic about doing anything we could to improvise together, and she gave me a score of what was basically I've Got Rhythm, which she'd done as a soloist. And I thought, well, if I sit in the primo position at the top of the piano and improvise something on top of this, and we call it Gershwin in Tears, that's Tiers, not the tears that come down your face, because I put a third tier on top in terms of a few arpeggios and scales that seemed to match, a bit of inversion that seemed to match the theme where I've got rhythm, I go, I've got rhythm at the same time as she goes, I've got rhythm. So you've got it going in contrapuntal inversion. And I thought, well, we can make something out of this as a little bit sort of just a little bit poking fun at the original and to just make it something a little bit different. And so we did this. We recorded Gershwin in Tears. Having done it, we thought, well, if we're going to do American in Paris, we just put that version in. So that version came at the end, and it seems to work quite well.
Perfect. It
before
did.
the final climax.
Yeah, works fine. Let's see what else. What do we got? We have some time. I'm really so curious to go through. Well, let's go through the CD as far as we can, because what I love is now kind of the serious thing. So we've talked about the two major works that are wonderful reimaginings of two big pieces of Gershwin. But now let's start looking at these preludes and how you morph other songs to them. For example, Prelude Novelette, and I'm a little confused. The Novelette in fourths, 1919. That was a ragtime that Gershwin wrote in 1919.
Yes, it's also, he's called it a prelude as well.
Aha, and then you weave into that structure the song "Love Walked In" from 1938, which I guess was the last piece he composed before his death. Yeah.
We think so. Yeah.
There's another 1938 song of his a little further down in the CD. The very end of that last year. That really, what a tragedy to lose this man.
Absolutely.
Total tragedy.
And he's described as being so energetic and so much fun, and also, as we know, the story of Ravel. It's not a lie. It's not a myth.
No,
Ravel
true.
essentially said, "You don't need me." Words to you don't need me. You're doing your own thing. Go do it.
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at this Prelude Novelette in fourths, 1919, and Cakewalk, and what's the process? Who do I look to? Who do I ask?
Yes, it was mostly me again, and the process was really, really difficult. I imagined that once we decided which song we were going to do, that it would be plain sailing, but it wasn't, because it's actually going from the mood of the novelette into the mood of the song, and then learning for both of us to play the song legato, and how it would sound as a singer would sing it, which was it was a huge demand on both of us.
Very interesting. And that's just the beginning then of what we're going to continue talking about. Because here's what I see and what I wrote. I wrote seamless melding. Hello.
Right.
All that work paid off. Seamless melding.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's a fresh piece all by itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Diversions 2, Rialto Ripples, a tune
Yes.
from 1917 that you have meshed together with Love is Here to Stay, 1937. And I think it must have to do with the theater, not with the.
It's the theater.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Give us
we
a
reckon
little,
so.
Give us a little on that. It's a lovely piece.
Sorry, can you explain that again?
Yes, sure. Rialto Ripples. Want to give me a little overview of how that was put together?
How did you find Rialto Ripples? You just looked through the catalogue.
It was a question of just searching anywhere you could. And some of these preludes are just fragments, but that was another whole one. And again, it was very difficult going from this this world to the world of the song. And again, I found that with each of these pieces, each one had its unique sound world and also the mood world. And it was terribly important to get it right. And that's, that's what I'd say about both of these diversions, which was terribly different from the world of the preludes.
Really?
Yes, because the preludes were actually, they're much more piano solo pieces, and they each have very individual characters. The first one is very boisterous, and we listened to Christian Zimmermann playing them, and they were absolutely fantastic. And then it was a question of thinking, now, are these metronome marks Gershwin's, and what do we do about the metronome marks, and how do we meld them into the songs that we're going to use? And I guess at the end, we just created what we did. They kind of grew, it's like writing a novel, and at the end, the characters just take over.
That's a wonderful way of putting it, and I'm going to be just kind of briefly overview the three preludes because the three that you chose are so well known. Everybody recognizes the three preludes, and then to see how you move them. So, for example, the first prelude, again melded and meshed in with "I'll Build a Stairway to Paradise" from 1922. Must have taken months to figure that one out, how that would work. Go.
How did we discover, in the first place, that the first line of Stairway in Paradise fits contrapuntally exactly with the opening of the prelude? But it does, doesn't it?
Yes, quite miraculous.
It's miraculously coincidence. It does fit.
Was it sort of like you got started and then went, oh, look at this coincidence, or did you discover?
I think we did. We had a moment when we realised that the two tunes fitted over the top of each other. And that's what we do towards the end of the piece. We fit them over the top of each other.
Robert's always trying to do this, with melodies, and he say, "Oh, that would fit with that," and I can do that song in the style of.
Yeah.
I see. Well, so I've been trying to find out how where Robert comes into the mix here, aside from maybe playing and saying, "No, that won't do. Rewrite." So there is obviously an exchange between the two of you, and it clearly is reflected in the playing as well, because you can't get much better than a married couple playing duets together.
Yeah. Well, what I have to learn to do with these little ragtime ditties and these spiky bits of Gershwin's very fast writing is to tone them all down so that the distinction between the beautiful somnolent song and the spiky rhythm of the other piece is not too harsh. So you've got to blend them together, and very often means Gershwin's very presto tempos have got to be reduced to an allegro moderato, because otherwise it's too much of a shock. Gershwin and other pianists play the preludes very, very fast, and we've had to make them just a little bit slower, which actually doesn't do them any harm. You've got longer to think about the melodic lines where they're not quite so rushed, and it seems to do them good.
Exactly, and by the way, they are preludes. I always think of preludes as being meditative and slow.
Yes.
And by the way, you do the same thing in Porgy and Bess.
Okay.
I remember the opening section of Porgy and Bess. Usually it's and you go and you hear, and one is able to hear all those inside parts.
We give people a bit of a chance with them. Yeah. It's important, I think.
And by the way, the dissonances, the seconds and so on throughout Gershwin's music are so much more unctuous and delicious to hear when you have a real chance to hear them.
Yeah, you're right.
I think, okay, so the third prelude, Someone to Watch Over Me, 1926, and then The Man I Love. So you mash two songs into this third prelude. And why? Why'd you change the pattern?
The Man I Love just happened to be in E flat major, which was helpful. We just happened to know the song very well, so we think we'll do that one. I mean, that was one of the reasons for that, wasn't it?
Yes.
So sometimes the decisions are purely practical.
This was a practical decision, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I think you're aware when you're writing a whole piece that you want to bring in enough variety. And so you think, I've got to create a different mood here. So what can I bring into this that's going to change it, but that's still going to fit overall?
Yeah.
I'm pretty much breathless here. Let's that was beautifully described. Let's see. What have I'm ready to ask you, and then the final question, which is what's next? And do you have a regimen, which is like, okay, we've done this one, now maybe in 2 years we'll put out another. We all know that it costs money. It's it's a big responsibility and all that stuff. But these are fabulous, and I suspect the French themed CD and the other are the same way. So do you have a 5-year plan?
Well, we're going to do a France Revisited 2 is the next CD. We're already working well into halfway getting the repertoire for that one sorted out.
And that's in September.
And that's in September.
And we have to go back in order to explain this, because France Revisited 1 consists of, darling, you can...
Yeah, France Revisited 1 majors on the composing abilities of a gentleman called George Onslow.
I mentioned this, not well known at all.
He's not well known.
Yeah. We had never heard of him until we just stumbled across his music in a dusty library drawer in London.
And he's actually French with an English name because he started off, of course, in a well-known aristocratic English family, and there was a bit of a scandal in the family, and so one member of it had to leave and set up the French branch of the family, and George Onslow was the first child of that. And so
it's been very dicey, that you Brits and the French, ever since Mary Queen of Scots and before, or Richard, the Richards.
Yeah, it's never been an easy thing relating the two countries together. Yeah. This was another example of that. So he nipped across to France, started the French branch of the family there, and George Onslow in the middle of the 19th century grew up in a hunting, shooting and fishing environment, didn't write any music till he was 22 years old. But he did a lot of study both in I think the Netherlands and in London, and then went back and wrote a terrific number of string quartets and string quintets and 2 very lovely sonatas for 4 hands on 1 piano. Yes. Now, we've recorded one of those already on France Revisited 1, and we're going to do the other one on France Revisited 2.
And the rest of France Revisited 1 are 4 pieces by Debussy and 6 songs by Poulenc, which we arranged. And then so on this second CD, we're going to record the second sonata of George Onslow, and it's beautiful. It's like Schubert, and gorgeous melodies and 4 movements.
So congratulations for stumbling upon this composer. That, of course, makes my mouth water because I love anything and everything that's new and fresh. And this is a man I've never heard of as a composer. So very, very exciting.
Well, great.
Also, I love very much, we're going to wind it down here with a quick overview so people can run out. All of this, our video interview later. I'm a bit behind on reviews, but I promise later I'm going to put up a review of the CD. We're talking about the 2019 Divine Art release. We'll have all the information how to buy the CD. I'll put up a very charming, I'm not going to give it away, you know what it is, the very charming video that you two make that really helps everyone understand your relationship. Let's see, all of that at performingartsreview.net. Great pleasure chatting with you once more. This is the 2019 Divine Art release, Porgy, Preludes and Paris. Very thoughtful CD, beautiful transcriptions and reimaginings compositionally of the pieces we've been discussing. It's just fabulous. And the other thing I love very much about you two, is that you have obviously a perfect match. You speak back and forth with precise timing. It's just perfect the way you share the platform. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, it's been a great pleasure. It's getting late in Britain, so we'll call it an evening. Right.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you very much indeed.
Right on.
Wonderful talking with you.